I used to receive a voice note or a message from them, telling me what's happening, telling me what's the plan, discussing with me any potential stories that we can do. Not having this message today just broke me.
Yeah. Yesterday, Middle East Eye lost two valued and talented journalists who were killed by Israel in Gaza. A shocking moment broadcast live on air when a deadly Israeli double-tap attack struck Gaza's Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. A deliberate targeting, killing healthcare workers, rescue personnel, patients, and 5 journalists. Of them, our 2 colleagues, Mohammed Saleh, a young and talented photographer, and Ahmed Abu Aziz, the passionate and skilled written reporter. So we're now joined by Khaled Shalaby, Middle East Eye's head of video news gathering, who worked closely with both of our colleagues who were killed by Israel in Gaza. Khaled, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Khaled, you worked very closely with both Mohammed Saleh and Ahmed Abu Aziz. Can you tell us about our colleagues who were killed? Each of them was sometimes behind the camera or writing, so they may not have been such public figures. Tell us about how it was working with them.
Both Mohammed and Ahmed were very exceptional as journalists, as reporters, and as human beings. Both were very talented. They knew what should they do, what should they cover on the ground, especially with very intense breaking news on the ground. Mohammed Saleh, I remember him from the very beginning of the war and the military operations in Gaza back in October 2023. And I remember this story that he covered. I guess everyone knows the story, but I never knew that Mohammed Saleh was the one who was behind it. The curly hair kid from Gaza. The mother was kind of screaming, looking for the kid. His father was a doctor in his duty in Nasser hospital. And Mohammed just got on time, on spot, just recording the moment of identifying his son's body. Coincidentally, Ahmed Abu Aziz was the journalist who took the pictures of the kid and trying to help the family to identify the boy back then. They were both very, very exceptional. It's a very devastating loss for Middle East Eye, for journalists globally and in Gaza. Mohammed, I remember him because he was one of the first people were, producing and reporting in TikTok. And he used to edit his videos and, interviewing people. And he has this personality that, earned the trust very easily, especially with very, complex stories. So basically, with his kindness, his personality will very easily will go through all these kind of stories. People will just feel comfortable to talk to. Ahmed was very exceptional a news editor on the ground. Ahmed, you will find all the urgent news. You will just find him dropping you a message. Khaled, this is happening. I'm there. What do you need? And he will just provide you with all the essential footage that you need from the events. Both were a combined teamwork that they respected each other and they worked together to deliver the story from the ground as they should.
Wow. So you worked very, very closely with them over the past 2 years and you formed a bit of a team with those two and maybe others around. So tell us about some of the stories that maybe they have produced or reported on that you think particularly stood out and highlighted their reporting and their talent.
Ahmed, he was, I would say, a very responsive journalist. You will see the urgent news happening on the ground, and before even, reaching out to him, he will just drop you a message. So basically, with all the breaking news, the majority of the breaking news, especially in southern Gaza, Ahmed was one of our main reporters on the scenes. Mohammed Saleh, especially Mohammed, he was more focused on the human aspect beyond the news. So you will find him more focused on the daily suffering of people in Gaza, the kids, the children, the parents, and all the big news is happening globally. I remember one of the most and the top story that we have doing so far, the exclusive report on Abdullah al-Yazuri, the kid, the narrator kid who was narrating the BBC documentary. Everyone was focused on, BBC decision on withdrawing the documentary, while Mohammed and Hala, his partner, were focused on who is this kid, what is his story, what actually happened, and what his response to what's being speculated by all the news back then. So basically, they spent the whole week just trying to reach out to all the participants in the documentary, and specifically Abdullah, and to convince them to speak to us, to talk, to tell his part of the story. And it was very dangerous, very, very dangerous. I remember that Muhammad he had to plan it more than 5 times because he had to travel. He had to plan his journey in a very dangerous areas, and he had to reschedule just because of an airstrike happened, erupted during his interview. And with all what's been speculated by the Western media back then, made Abdullah as a legitimate target. So basically, even to convince the family to speak out was a very hard to do. But Muhammad, with his personality, with his character, he managed to convince the family to talk and to have Abdullah and to comfort him to talk about his story and his part of the story. The second story that I remember, which is very, very important and is very touching to me, when the stories about the U.S. contractor and the boy who was kissing his hands, everyone was focused on the U.S. contractor and to get his story and his exclusive interviews. But no one literally talked about the boy. What happened to this boy? Who is this boy? We had this conversation together, me and Mohammed and Hala, and we decided to just dig into it. We need to identify this boy. So literally, we went through all the hospitals, clinics, all the documents that identifies any kid in Gaza called or named Amir and died or killed during this period. We went through all, what you can imagine of the amount of footage of bodies, of children's bodies, to identify their faces, or is it similar to the face that we have seen on the footage revealed online or not, until we identified the actual name, which was Abdul Rahim, not Amir. And then the second step was to reach out to the family and to convince them to talk. They were scared, they were confused because a lot of news erupts back then and they didn't know exactly what's happening. Where is Amir? Was he actually killed or not? And this was part of the story and was part of delaying the story to go out just to make sure that we have all facts. Muhammad, back then, he went to the hospital, filmed and took all the pictures, videos of all the bodies that we are investigating and identifying, speaking to people, recording eyewitness and first-hand testimonies from the grounds. Then we reached out to the family, we spoke to them, we were the only outlet who spoke to the uncle, the cousin, and the stepmother. And we even identified his ID, his birth certificate, even the death certificate of his father who was killed during a previous airstrike back in 2024. So, this kind of professionalism, you can't find it anywhere. People, or literally journalists in Gaza, are very exceptional. They are the actual heroes behind all the stories that we are talking about. They are the people who risk their lives to reveal what's happening on the ground. It's not that easy. And with all these risks, how much they will calculate or even, kind of take a step back and, see if it's something dangerous to do or not. Literally, with Muhammad, it didn't take him on every conversation more than 5 minutes. And never doubt to go to any dangerous areas and to cover a very critical stories on the ground without hesitate. Muhammad and Ahmed, they are like a big loss for journalism. literally, I feel like no words can describe the amount of, you know, our emotional, our feelings, because I remember just today morning is that I used to receive a voice note or a message from them telling me what's happening, telling me what's the plan, discussing with me any potential stories that we can do. Not having this message today just broke me.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's been a massive loss for all of us as Middle East Eye, as journalists. It's a huge loss, and we're very sorry for your loss, of course.
It's very devastating.
Yeah, it was devastating, and as we've seen, Israel continues to target journalists repeatedly, and indirect targetings as well, such as Anas Sharif, which we know he was in that specific tent, and now we see this exact targeting, and unfortunately this one was even live streamed. We witnessed it in front of our eyes. So I know this may be a difficult question, but why do you think Israel continues to target journalists? As you said, these people are the people who get the story out. What would you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's what I would say, it's a systematic move that Israel is just keep doing so far. We can see that, if you remember Sheen Abu Aqli and the circumstances behind it, it was back then during the escalation in West Bank and their plans to invade Jenin's camp. Then you move to what happens during the war. Wa'il Dahduh was targeted. His son Hamza was targeted. Ismail al-Ghul was targeted. So you can see from that is kind of a pattern that Israel is doing on the ground to try to silence voices, to try to silence journalists who report what's happening on the ground. Is kind of a message. If you are a reporter from Gaza and trying to report what's happening, you are a legitimate target, regardless. For us as journalists, yes, our reporters doesn't need just our mourns, our support. They need our protection. We need to act. We need to do every means to protect them on the ground. We can't just assign them or ask them to do stories on the ground without a proper protection. So basically, this is our duty as outlets, as entities, to make sure that those reporters are giving the proper protection, the proper caring that they need. People in Gaza doesn't need our sympathy. They don't need that. They need our action. They need our protection. This is exactly what they need. They need to survive. They actually are human beings. They have their dreams. They have their future that they are looking for. Mohammed and Hala, they were planning for their wedding. It's simple as that. I remember just last week, they messaged me and talked to me about what's my expectation on the ceasefire talks. People were just waiting for, a space to live their lives, to achieve their dreams. And just because they are doing their job as reporters, as journalists, they are being targeted. They are being justified to be targeted just for telling what's happening, for reporting the actual and critical stories from the ground.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult time and huge losses for both us as Middle East Eye and the journalists around the world. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Khaled, sorry for your loss, but thank you for shedding light on these important matters.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.